Race number 3 of the Holiday Winter Racing League brings us to Papyrus Motorsports Park here in Walden, Massachusetts for the running of the Massachusetts Classic. For our second to last race of the winter, 28 of the best drivers and teams are getting ready to race at our biggest track ever featured on the channel. But before we get started, let's take a look at our starting lineup and pre-race ceremonies. So on the pole we have the 81 of Brendan Carruthers, next to him the 82 of Gaming Freak. Row 2, Bradley Reim and Matthew Hill. Row 3, Brendan Beal and Nathan Baird. Row 4, Jason Albert and John Ard. Row 5, Nick Sant and Lipsy. Row 6, Ada Robertson and Matthew Burnett. Row 7, Ross McTrain and Owen Miles. Row 8, Ryan Wilson and Roberto Crown Jr. Row 9, Caleb Rose and Jordan Stout. Row 10, Alex Cass Stevens and the winner from the last race in the M&M's Classic, Joe T in the 17. Row 11, It's Movement and RC Gamer trying to keep his top 10 streak alive. Row 12, Johnny Hernandez and Kellen Baker, who's another driver, trying to keep their top 10 streak alive here today. Row 13, Madhouse Classic winner Keith Shannon is another driver, trying to keep their top 10 streak alive, and next to him is teammate and coroner Random J. And finally, in row 14, we got Kyle Salmon in the 23, and next to him the 88 of Hoodlum. Taking a look at the track info here for tonight's race, we're going to go 16 laps on this absolutely massive 3.7 mile long road course with 7 turns of all of being highly banked, similar to tracks like Atlanta or Kansas. And as for the weather here today in Walton, 45 degrees Fahrenheit with 9 miles per hour towards the southeast. And now it's time for our pre-race ceremonies. Today is of course Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a day where we honor the achievements and accomplishments of not only the late Dr. King, but also the entire civil rights movement as a whole. Please join us for this brief moment of silence. Thank you. And now it is time for our national anthem. And now it is time for the most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines!
Now, of course, just like with every race, I just want to once again thank everyone for all the love and support. Even though these are, like I mentioned, all the time, seemingly, these are not easy for me to make, but whenever I can get these out, I'm always happy that I can. I'm always happy that y'all are watching them and enjoying them. But as the pace car comes down pit road, it's time to sit back and relax for the semi-finale of the Holiday Winter Racing League. And here we go, Brendan Carruthers and Gaming Freak will lead the field to green here in the Massachusetts Classic. And a great start for Brendan Carruthers on the outside. Into turns 1 is Brendan Beal making 3 wide, with Bradley Reim stuck in the middle, Matthew Hill in the 90 way up high on the outside. Into turn number 2, Matthew Hill still 3 wide on the outside. As he nearly gets in the wall in the 90s, makes contact almost shot in the 21, lip-sync the wall in the 8 car. 4 wide briefly there, down this long straightaway and down the hill and into turn number 3. Here comes Beal battling Gaming Freak for second. Going to turns 3 and 4. And this first half a lap or so really speaks for how this track is completely different from any road course we've ever been to. But almost no road course I can think of has racing this fast, banking this steep, and frankly, very competitive racing early on. Coming off turn number 5, quickly looking through the rest of the field towards the back half of the pack, where there's still 3 wide, with a lot of notable names up towards the points in that back half. Coming off turn number 7, as Brendan Carruthers will come to lead lap number 1 of 16 here in the Massachusetts Classic. Now Gaming Freak is side by side for the lead into turn number 1. Brendan Beal, 37, also joined him on the inside, with Brado now stuck on the outside. Into turn number 2, Gaming Freak to the lead, as now Carruthers has to deal with Beal for second. Looks like Beal will have the advantage over the 81 down to Hill, as it comes Beal's former partner and teammate Bradley Reim in the 10, trying to challenge Brendan Carruthers for third. Looks like through this right turn, turn number 3, Carruthers will hold on to third, as Bradley got a really bad run that time by and will fall down 7 positions in that 10. And there you see behind those 3 is the 80 of Jason Albert and the 48 of Aiden Robertson. Albert came in this race 17th in the point standings, lost 10 positions after being involved in the big one late in the M&M's Classic, where Aiden Robertson only fell down 3 positions down to 6. So throughout the first half of the season, definitely a great season for the 48. But of course this race and our last race at Kansas will make or break that. Brad Reim now down to 6, as most of his top dozen or so all in a single file line here. Coming to complete lap number 2 is now Beal looks to the inside for the lead. Carruthers riding until the 81 as they'll make it 3 wide down the front stretch. Gaming Freak in the wall coming to lap number 3. And Gaming Freak in the wall there is going to force them up towards the outside of the track and possibly losing more positions to Jason Albert and Aiden Robertson, as Beal and Carruthers into turn number 2 are side by side for the lead. Carruthers on the inside, as off turn number 2, he'll clear the 37 to take back the lead. 3 wide further back, you saw Nathan Bear Ross McTrain there briefly, almost right on the rumble strips. And despite this, of course, being a road course, haven't we seen too many drivers using that rumble strip here today? Once again, through these steep and wide corners of turns 3 and 4, we've got a battle for third between Aiden Robertson and Bradley Reim. But unlike last time, he was able to maintain that position, as he's now on the inside going into turn number 5, trying to force up that 48 up towards the track. As we come down this back straightaway. Take a look at some of the other cars currently inside this top 10. Got the 40 of Nick Sant currently in 7th. So far, that 40 team's best run in the winner. Ross McTrain, I talked a little bit earlier in the lap, currently in 8th, as there you see Gaming Freak, after being the leader, who of course not even a lap ago was your leader, but is now barely inside this top 10 as we're threaded once again off turn number 7. It was like Reim will finally clear Robertson for third, as Carruthers once again led that time by. Beal all over the back bumper. Carruthers off turn number 1 and down this mini front stretch. Into turn number 2s are on board with the 37 here. Going into today's race, Beal is back in the 21st position in points. Definitely desperate for a good day here in Papyrus, especially going into our finale at Kansas. Into turns 3 and 4, Beal lost a little bit of ground on the 81, but the 10 and Reim and the 3 of Baird aren't too far behind. Battle for 5th now between Aiden Robertson and Jason Albert once again. These two have been almost next to each other this entire race thus far. It looks like into turn number 5 here, as Albert scrapes the wall, the 48 of Robertson has the advantage as they now come down this back straightaway. Ross McTrain still holding on inside the top 10, side by side Nick Sant, the 40 car. And behind McTrain is Winter Street Stocks champion of Ryan Wilson, currently scored in the 9th position. Back up front, off turn number 7 comes Beal once again for the lead. Coming to lap number 5, we'll remake it 3 wide into turn 1. Carruthers is in the wall once again. Into turn 1, Reim tucks in right behind his former teammate as both of them are trying to get around the 81. Into turn 2, both Beal and Reim get around the 81, putting Brendan Beal up to first, and now Reim looks to the inside for the lead. Beal quickly comes down to block the 10, but will Reim get another good run here as they go down the hill and into turn number 3. Bradley will stay committed on the inside lane as he's slowly but steadily trying to gain ground in that 37. Going up the hill this time and into this hairpin turn of turn number 5 as everyone in the top 3 hits the wall there. But despite that, into turn number 5, Reim gets a huge run on the 37, throws Carruthers as coming down this back straightaway. This could provide a great opportunity for Reim or Carruthers to get around that 37. But going into turn number 6, both the 10 and 81 still stay committed right behind the 37. But as they approach turn number 7, it's very likely that's probably going to change. As now here comes Carruthers looking to the inside of Reim down the front stretch. As his teammate Nathan Baird will follow. Now Reim will get to the inside for the lead. Lap number 6 this time by. Beal is now stuck on the outside as the 2 Chevys and the Dodge stay committed to the inside lane. As they come off turn number 1, now Carruthers looks to the inside the 10. Reim quickly coming down the block into turn number 2 as Carruthers is once again side by side with Beal for second. And this is going to give Bradley a sizable gap over the rest of the field as both Carruthers and his teammate Nathan Baird try to run that 37 into turns 3 and 4. And it looks like Carruthers will get around the 37 and move back up to second place. Nathan Baird trying to do just the same, but unlike his teammate, Baird was on the outside. Before she for Baird off turn number 4 up the hill into turn number 5 is going to play in his favor. Down the back shoulder, Baird still side by side with 37. Robertson still in the mix. Looks like everyone in the wall there didn't really affect these running order at all, which is pretty fortunate for a lot of these drivers. 59 and Caleb Rose currently scoring the 8th spot. Can this race 15th in points after almost winning the M&M's Classic after a late race caution from the aforementioned big one, all but ruining Rose's shot to win. And there's Gaming Freak at 82, still barely into this top 10. But at 07, Alex Cass-Stevens is all over the back bumper of that 82 as we come to lap number 7. Both these drivers came this race inside the top 10 in points, with Gaming Freak being in 7th while Cass-Stevens being in 10th. There's Nick Sent currently in 12th after being inside the top 10 a little earlier in the race, as that team came this race all the way back into 24th position, and to make matters worse, they didn't gain a single position in points after the M&M's Classic. Matt Fournette in 13th, he was a driver who was up towards the front throughout most of the M&M's Classic until he involved in the late big one. Roberto Crown Jr. in the 31, currently in 15th, so far his best run in the Holiday Winter Racing League. But unfortunately at the same time, still a far cry when Ryan Wilson drove that number last year from the aforementioned Winter Street Stocks Championship last year. There's Matt Field in 16th and Owen Miles in 17th. Those drivers coming in 25th and 14th in the point standings respectively. Behind him in 18th is actually the highest winning Toyota so far, moving to 97, so far not a great day for Toyota. There's your winner from the M&M's Classic, Joe Teen, to 17 down to 19th. Definitely not a good run at all for the driver that came in race inside the top 10 in points, moving up 12 spots after the M&M's Classic win. Random Jane to 53 and 20th. That's been a very quiet past couple races for that 53 team, as he came this race 16th in points. Same could also be said for Johnny Hernandez in 21st, so struggles continue for not only Johnny, but also Hernandez Racing as a whole, as the 88 car Hodem has also struggled to find success here in HWRL. And speaking of struggles, there's your points leader, Keyshawn Richardson. And remember, Richardson's one of only 3 drivers to finish at the top 2 in both the races we had thus far. And the other 2 are also struggling, RC Gamer to 42 and Calvin Baker to 28. These guys are looking for some big point days, especially this being the second to last race. But now, none of them are even to the top 20, so that's been a struggling day for drivers that all came this race inside the top 5 in points. Some of the drivers here I mentioned Hodem a little bit earlier, just Jordan Stout, saw Kyle Simon the 23 a little bit earlier, and Lipsy currently in last place in 28th after of course hitting the wall back at lap number 1. Meanwhile, back up front, Brad Reim's story orders. Actually take a look at the replay back in lap number 7. Brandon Carruthers actually took back the lead from Reim into turn number 1. And then down the mini front stretch and into turn number 2 here, cleared Reim for the lead. But about 1 lap later, Reim took that spot right back from the 81. Definitely going to run there for Bradley into turn number 1. And much like last time, cleared him off turn number 2. And of course that led to Bradley leading lap number 8. Meanwhile, Nathan Barrett into 3 up to 2nd, while Aiden Robertson is up to 3rd. Carruthers down to 4th. It's now Jason Albert looks to the inside of Beal, down the hill and into turns 3 and 4. And as soon as I say that, Albert's going to quickly tuck back down in line, remaining in the 6th position. Of course, Nathan Barrett just a few short weeks ago at the M&M's Classic had that scary flipping probably over at least a dozen times, to landing thankfully on all 4 wheels on pit road. And to add insult to injury, Barrett also struggled during our first race in the Madhouse Classic back on Christmas Day. Because of that, Barrett is currently last in points in 28th, and can definitely imagine that he not only needs a good run, but better to win if he still wants a chance at the championship in Kansas next month. But as I said, in the turn number 6 comes Robertson, trying to force Barrett up the track, trying to clear him for 2nd place. Robertson still side by side with Barrett as you come to lap number 10, as you're just past halfway here in the Massachusetts Classic. Into turn 1, looks like Robertson will finally clear Barrett for 2nd, as the 3 car is going to lose several spots here to his teammate Brandon Carruthers, Brendan Beal, and possibly Jason Albert here. Albert once again looking to the inside of Beal into turn number 2, but Beal quickly comes to block the 80 car. As here comes Ross McTrain now in the picture in the 49. Side by side with Nathan Barrett. What would be the 6th spot? Looks like into the turns, Barrett will clear McTrain. It's back up front, Bradley once again. That's a pretty decent gap between him and Aiden Robertson. As they go up the hill and into turn number 5, they all hit the wall again. That's been a big problem for a lot of those every driver seemingly in this field. Was just definitely goes to show you how tricky that part of the racetrack really is. Through turn 6 and 7, here comes Carruthers now looking to the inside of Robertson. No, just now he's going to come down the pit. Here comes Carruthers down pit road along with 7 other drivers, including the leader, Bradley Reim. Brendan Beal, Jason Albert, Nathan Barrett, among others. Probably about half the field there. All coming down pit road. And of course, with green flag pit stops, timing is absolutely everything. We've seen many drivers in this channel in the past time their pit stops beautifully and win a race, while other drivers did not time their pit stops not so well and lose a race when they had it right in their hands. Now for the drivers who are currently still on the track planning to pit later on in the race, who's the 40 of Aiden Robertson, the 59 of Caleb Rose, the 07 of Alex Cass Stevens, Roberto Crown Jr., Sean Ard, and Owen Miles Movement, and many others. Again, probably about half, maybe a little over half of the field currently on pit road. And I can see these drivers on pit road being on pit road for quite a long time. You can definitely imagine they're filling up that tank to its absolute limits. As we just do green, white, checkered finishes, you never know when you might need that extra fuel. Now, I started there with Brad Reim, Jason Albert, some of the first drivers finished with their pit stops here. As here come the drivers who are staying out. In the turn number 7, will they come down this time? Looks like they will. Of course, Robertson, Rose, and Cass Stevens, your first 3 in. As there comes everybody else from that first group off pit road. And looks like Brad Reim, Brendan Beal, and Jason Albert with some of the first drivers off. As here comes the second group of cars in their pit stalls doing their pit stops here. Now, of course, the big question is, will that second group beat the first group off of pit road? As, of course, right now, the second group are still your leaders ahead of these guys who just came out of pit road. And as you start off the first group on pit road, it takes about a lap to actually complete your pit stop because, again, these teams are really trying to fill up that fuel tank or do any additional adjustments in case of a green, white, checkered finish. You know, Brad Reim has a huge gap over the rest of the field. But, of course, that might change with those other drivers down pit road. We'll just have to wait and see here. Some of the other drivers following closely behind Reim include the 37 Brendan Beal, Jason Albert 80, the 49 Ross McTrain. I think these guys are just about done with the pit stops here, as the first group is quickly coming towards the front stretch, coming off turn number 7 and down the front stretch as they're here to come off pit road. Here, all of the second group drivers off pit road. Will they beat the first group? Ryder completed lap number 11 not too long ago, but here comes Aiden Robertson back onto the track into turn number 2, beating Bradley by a mile. A great pit strategy there for the second group drivers, as well as Rose and Cass Stevens will leapfrog ahead the 10 car. Bradley's going to fall down to 4th, Brendan Beal falling down to 5th, or both Jason Albert and Ross McTrain will back wheel the top 5. Robertson back to the lead, but he saw Bradley working on the 07 at Cass Stevens as they're side by side for the 3rd position. Going into number 5, Robertson still in the wall, but despite that, still has a comfortable gap over the rest of the leaders. Well, at the same time, Rose was in a complete handful, which allowed Cass Stevens to move back up to 2nd. Here comes Reim, 3 wide in the middle between Rose and Beal going into number 6. We got trouble. Brittany Carruthers goes around the back straight away. Caution also. Hodum goes for a spin. Rosen gets turned in turn number 6. Hodum also gets collected as well as RC Gamer into 42. I was like, everybody else, including Lipsy, able to go through that as the past 2 series champions of Rolston and Hoodlum have damaged late here in the Massachusetts Classic. And this is going to cause us to have another green-white checkered finish. The 07 Alex Cass Stevens out front. I see the damage there on Ryan Wilson, Hoodlum. I think Brendan Carruthers didn't get any damage from that, but he did go for a spin into the grass. And it looks like everyone else in the running order got through there unscathed. I was going to take a look at the instant replay to find out exactly what happened. So all just started going into turn number 5. Watch the 81 of Brendan Carruthers alongside his teammate Matt Burnett in the 4 car. So into 5. Burnett gets a huge run on the 81, but here comes Hoodle making it 3 wide. Just left no room for Burnett at all. And off of 5 and in the backstretch just turned his teammate into the grass. Certainly did not mean to do that at all. But then here comes Hoodle hitting the wall, hitting the 4 car, and then RC Gamer turns Ryan Wilson, which is on for there. Hoodlum had nowhere to go, and Lipsy, look at that, in the 8 car, barely getting by, as well as some of the other cars, including Jordan Stout. And I believe Keisha Ernsten barely missed that. I was going to up to 88 here. Now Brado sent Hoodlum around, and then Hoodlum up to Burnett, and then back up the track again. Make this time contact from Ryan Wilson. Sent that 88 car spinning. Speaking of which, there's a ground board for Ryan Wilson here. So sees the spin happening, and then into 6. Oh, hits the 3 of Nathan Baird. He's got the 16 loose. Send him around. Ground board flips, you see how close he was from hitting this. Holy crap, Jesus Christ. Lipsy saw his life flash before his eyes right there, I bet. Anyways, under caution here in the Massachusetts Classic, as we'll be right back for our 2nd ever green-white checkered finish. The HWRL will return next month at the Kansas Speedway for the running of the Kansas City Classic, as well as to determine our HWRL champion. WRN's channel February 21st, President's Day, the day after the Daytona 500, so definitely stay tuned for that. As we welcome back to the Papyrus Motorsports Park here for the Massachusetts Classic, we're about to back green after a multi-car incident in turn number 6 involving a past 2 series champions in Hoodlum and Ryan Wilson. And of course, with that cassette caution coming off less than 5 laps to go, we will have another green-white checkered finish. In case you don't know how that works, or got the graphic below the screen, we will have 3 attempts at this green-white checkered finish, and once the leader takes the white flag, the next flag will end the race. And here we go, pace car down pit road, as Cass Stevens, Robertson, Rose, and Reim are your top 4 green-white checkered attempt number 1 underway here in the Massachusetts Classic. Alrighty, into turn number 1, here comes Brendan Beal, peeking his nose on the inside, making it 3 wide with Rose and Reim. And while that's going on, Cass Stevens still with the lead over Robertson. Reim losing a lot of spots on the outside in turn number 2. So Owen Miles and Nick didn't do a touch there. Man, that was very scary for both of those Albert Racing drivers. As if those two were to touch, that could have created a massive, massive wreck. Down the hill through turns 3 and 4. Cass Stevens still with the lead. As Rose and Beal are side by side for third. As Cass Stevens has a pretty sizable gap over Robertson. But that could change quickly as we're going back up the hill. And then turn number 5 as everyone hits the wall once again. As Brendan Beal has the advantage over Rose for the third position. Here comes Ruben, the 97, almost out of nowhere, trying to challenge for this top 5. Ross McTrain, Roberto Crown also in this mix alongside Johnny Hernandez. So it's good to see a lot of drivers who are towards the back half of the points and or towards the back half of the running order earlier today, all up front when it matters the most. As we're on board with the 48 Robertson, gaining a lot of ground on those 70s. Looks to the inside briefly there down the front stretch. When will he make his move? This time by white flag. Here he comes in turn number 1. Cass Stevens at the wall. Here comes Carol Rose as well in the 59 as the 48 and 07 are side by side for the lead. Off turn number 1 into turn number 2. Aiden Robertson will clear Cass Stevens for the lead as now Cass Stevens is side by side for second with Rose. Looks like off 2 Rose will clear Cass Stevens for the second position. But the $1 million question is, will Rose get to the 48 in time going into turns 3 and 4 for the final time? It looks like through those corners, Rose keeping his distance steady with the 48 as they go back up the hill and into turn number 5. Cass Stevens also making up ground in the 07 once again. I wouldn't count him out either as they come off turn number 5 down the back straightaway. Top 3 all single file having decent distance over the rest of the field as they all go into turn number 6. Robinson continuing to maintain that gap between him and Rose as Cass Stevens is right behind the back rubber of Rose into turn number 7 for the final time. Will we see Rose and Cass Stevens make one more attempt at the win off to number 7? It looks like they will. Here comes Rose and Cass Stevens for the win, but it's not going to be enough. Aiden Robertson wins the Massachusetts Classic. Congratulations to Aiden Robertson and RC Motorsports. Very recent today for the Massachusetts Classic. It's not only Robertson's first ever channel win, but also RC Motorsports' second points-paying race win. But also, most importantly, this is going to be a huge, huge points boost and confidence booster for that 48 team going into the final race next month at Kansas. This is going to be a huge, huge momentum for that team. This is definitely big. Again, a huge congratulations to them. But anyways, let's take a look at the finishing results and point standings after today's race. So here we go. Aiden Robertson finishes first in the 48. Of course, as I mentioned, a huge, huge congratulations on that team. And of course, this will affect them big, big time in the points, as you'll see here coming up. Finishing second is the 59 of Caleb Rose by 7/100ths of a second. And personally, I think if Rose tried to make his move a little earlier towards that final corner, he probably would have a shot of winning, but unfortunately, just not meant to be for that 59 team. So a good finish, however. Same could also be said for Alex Cass Stevens finishing third. They actually had the most laps here today of 5 laps, however, albeit most of those were under caution. But still, bonus points regardless for the 07 team going into the final race. Finishing fourth, it's Movement to 97, who's actually the only non-Chevy driver to finish inside his entire top 10, as everyone else is Chevys, with Movement being the sole Toyota. But still a good run there for the 97. Good run for Jason Albert finishing 5th, alongside Brendan Beal finishing 6th. And a good rebound for Johnny Hernandez finishing 7th after being below the top 20 during the first portion of this race. But thankfully for that 46 team, they cycled out of those green flag pit stops quite well. And results here in the top 10 finish at a 46. Same could also say for Roberto Crown Jr. finishing 8th, his highest HWRL race thus far. Finishing 9th is Ross McTrain, who's actually the only Spider Biffa driver to finish inside the top 10, despite Brendan Carruthers running the pole and winning quite a few laps throughout the first half of the race, alongside his teammate Nathan Baird being up towards the front in contention for the lead during that first half as well. But of course, with Carruthers spin and Nathan Baird falling back during pit road cycles, with McTrain as the sole Spider Biffa driver inside this top 10. And rounding off the top 10 is the 21 of Sean Earnhardt, who's another driver who cycled quite well out of this pit road cycles. He was also below the top 10 throughout the first half of the race, but after the pit road cycles, Sean squeaks by, getting a top 10 finish for that 21 team. And now for the point standings going into our final race next month at Kansas. And Aiden Robertson on top of the point standings with 115 points. That win, like I mentioned, helped out big time for that team. Moved up 5 positions alone. Got bonus points for, of course, winning and leading laps. So, again, just a fantastic points day for the 48 team. Probably almost the best case scenario for them. For that team, again, this is going to be a huge, huge confidence booster going into next month's finale. Keisha Richardson falls down to second, but only behind by 3 points. So despite Richardson not having a good finish at all, his points from the last 2 races at the Madhouse Classic and M&M's Classic, Alex Cass-Stevens up to third in points, up 7 positions after a good run here today, behind by 8. Actually tied with 2020 Summer Series champion Kellen Baker for that spot, because Cass-Stevens finished, of course, in third, while Baker finished below the top 20. Cass-Stevens has the upper edge. Carol Rose behind by 13, up to 5th in points, up 10 positions after last week's race. Another driver who benefited greatly from a good run here today. Last week's winner Joe T falls down 3 positions to 6th, behind by 16. 7th for Vince Movement, who's actually the biggest mover in the point standings, up 13 positions after last week's race. Behind by 17, currently tied with Jason Albert for that spot. 9th is Brad Reim into 10 by 19, while Sean Ard rounds up the top 10 points, behind by 20. So next up, race number 4, our final race of the winter. We're going to head to the Kansas Speedway for the running of the Kansas City Classic. We'll also, of course, determine our HWRL champion. Dominance Channel President's Day, February 21st. Of course, the day after the Daytona 500. And it's going to be definitely a pretty interesting championship battle, as essentially everyone has a chance of winning the championship. And it's going to be an interesting battle, to say the least. But as always, y'all, thank you guys for watching this race. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys next time.